Hey guys, welcome to the American Tribune Live. I got my camera and audio set up somehow. I don't know how it happened here, but now I got to remember to look up here and not down here. So bear with me today. I'm going to probably be looking all over the room here, but I'm glad you're joining me today. One thing I'm not glad about is having to do this podcast. I don't want to be talking about this. I don't want to talk about open season on whites, and it's been that way for a while, by the way. This is not new. It's not a new phenomenon that we're trying to denigrate white people, call them names, get people brainwashed enough that whatever happens next to us, because folks, it's not conspiracy anymore to feel like this is leading somewhere. I know they always like to reference the 1930s in Europe and talk about how narrative this and lies about people that, like, you can see how this is set up, right? Like, it's not a far-fetched realization to think, like, gosh, they're demonizing us every day. They're blaming us for all the problems. We're a problem, and what do you do with problems to make a better society? You have to eliminate the problem. So no, this is not a far-fetched idea. I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat to say that. I don't want to be saying that, though. Just understand, I don't want to be doing this podcast here. I want to encourage you folks, this is a live show. Let me know your comments, your thoughts below. I do have to look down at the screen here, and again, my camera's up here. I'm down here. I've been podcasting all over the place lately, but I set it up. I am technologically a boomer at heart here. All I had to do was plug in a USB, yell at the computer a few times, and we're back in action. I'm glad you're joining me today. Like I said, I'm not glad to be doing this, but we got to talk about things that have been happening in the news cycle aimed at white people. When you hear the word woke, I do have to set this up as well right away. When you hear the word woke, just understand woke at its core is anti-white. There are other, not even fringe movements. There are other movements here to support the rainbow jihad. You know, we got our Islamophobia alive and well in America, if you believe the leftist narratives here. At its core, though, wokeness is simply anti-white. Everything else is an offshoot from that. And that's the theme of the show. We got Sydney Sweeney. You know, now you're a fascist if you see a beautiful white woman. God forbid we have black is beautiful. Here's two dudes adopting a baby, and we're supposed to normalize that. We have not seen white people in ads for the last 5 years, ever since St. George of fentanyl overdosed on drugs. We've had black couples, interracial couples, biracial couples, dads. You've never seen white families in ads. We finally get not a fat, obese person on a major retail advertisement. Calvin Klein, I think, decided to go full woke. They had like their plus size lingerie. Victoria's Secrets decided that everyone was beautiful except skinny white girls. So American Eagle says, hey, you know what? Sydney Sweeney, she's busty. She's cute enough. I don't know. Sydney Sweeney might be a 6 if you were in a Hollywood celebrity. Aside from the point, though, she's got the long hair. She's got the curvaceous body. She's not, hard to look at, I suppose. So they put her on an ad because that's what you do if you're selling clothes or lingerie. You put beautiful women on there. That's what advertising is. Hello, Advertising 101. That's what Hollywood does. You go to movies to see attractive men and women lead actors, do whatever it is they do on screen, pretend all day, push narratives all day, but that's what you do. This is marketing, but the left decided that no, we can't have a white woman again. We can only keep pushing these black, obese women. You got to have the biracials, the browns, the gays. You can't have a white woman. That's fascism. So we got to talk about that in the reaction. I've got 2 reaction videos. Again, we finally got a white person back in like mainstream advertising, and you would think that the camps were getting erected right now. And no, that's not hyperbolic. I will play the videos for you. We have this story, and I forget the name of the community here. I'm trying to pull it up here. No doubt you've heard of the story of I think 40 white families down in the Arkansas Ozarks. They bought land. This land was vacant. They purchased it. It's privately owned now. It's privately held. And they were going to build a community for themselves. They said, I've had it with this. American society is falling apart. My kids are getting indoctrinated. I'm watching other white people get assaulted in Cincinnati. I got that story coming up. So they decide to build what amounts to be a commune, more or less. And communes can work on a small scale if everyone's got the right ideas. Bernie Sanders tried a commune, Mr. Communist himself, and he didn't want to do any work, and he got kicked out of a commune. But this commune, people have the right ideas. They share the same values. They want what's best for their kids. They want what's best for themselves. They want to flee the insanity of American society, and you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to, if you are white, build a community just for whites. Now, to contrast that, I've got a video clip of blacks building their own community on privately held lands. I've got video of, hey, we got Fally in the chat. One second, Fally, good morning. We've got a clip here of, in my own hometown, I am from Lakeville, Minnesota. Lakeville, Minnesota, I don't know what you would call it, a third ring suburb. It was about half an hour away from the Twin Cities, south of the Twin Cities on a major interstate down there, I-35. I grew up there. It was upper middle class white families in the 90s where I grew up. And it was idyllic. It was wonderful. You didn't have to lock your doors. You went to school. Everybody had for the most part, the same values. Like, there were always shenanigans in schools. You always had the kids that just did not want to be in school, which, by the way, is why I'm against mandating attendance in public school system. Schools would be better. Education would be more meaningful if we just kicked out the kids that didn't want to be there. Like, good luck. Go get a job. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world to just go work. You don't need a college degree. You don't even need a high school degree. What I do now, you could be 12 years old. You could buy a camera, buy a microphone, buy a computer, and have good opinions, or have opinions that somebody wants to listen to, and then start your own media company that way. So no, you don't have to go to school. School's a waste of time, especially for the kids that do not want to be there, don't deserve to be there. But Lakeville, Minnesota was a great place to grow up. Decent enough school system that was pre-woke, great community, great friends, great athletes, great leagues. I had a great time as a kid. And now Lakeville, Minnesota, set aside 40 acres of land. Does that sound familiar to what's going on in Arkansas? 40 acres of land for Somali developments. I will play the news coverage of the whites-only development, the blacks-only development, and the Somali-only development. And I bet you know which one is bad and which other two are good. But yeah, I want to say good morning to Fally. Thanks for joining the show here. I'm streaming on the main American Tribune channel. I think Rumble only lets us, now that we're using a third-party streaming service, only lets us do one Rumble channel at a time. And our Rumble community knows to find us at the American Tribune, so that's where I'm streaming on the main page. I will drop this on the American Tribune Live Rumble page, and it'll be on your Spotify's, your Apples. You can find us anywhere you want if you want to listen in the car. You like catching us live like Fally does and our Friday crew over on Rumble here. But good morning, Fally. Thanks for checking in. This is going to be a spicy show. It follows up Thursday's show that I did, talking about how we need to just straight up ban immigrants from holding elected office and even being banned from voting. And I got some feedback over on the old Twitter there, and people were like, yeah, give it 5 years. And I said, no, this is a hard no. If you are first generation immigrants, never allowed to hold office, never allowed to vote, maybe I would give an exception to your kids if they were born here and were here for like 20 years. Maybe. I'm still on the fence about that. I think immigrants and their children should be banned from voting, from holding elected office here. Because no matter how long you've been here, if you identify as an immigrant or identify as something other than just American, this is a big problem because you're supposed to represent America. And I made the case of, her name used to be Elvira. Now she goes by Maria Salazar down from Florida, Cuban American. I don't even like the hyphens. Why am I doing that? Teddy Roosevelt was right. There's no such thing as a hyphenated American. You're an American or you're not an American. And the problem with immigrants now is they either want the hyphen or they just want to be Cuban. Maria Salazar identifies as Cuban first, and she's like, you know what? All these immigrants in America, they work hard. America needs us. And so we're going to give them amnesty. And we already tried amnesty. Yeah, Fally says amen to that. I don't even think this is radical anymore. I will say, with all the nonsense going on out there, the Overton window has shifted. The things that we are not only allowed to say, but thinking about. Regular Americans are just like, yeah, I'm over immigration. They probably shouldn't hold office. Yeah, this stuff that's anti-white is probably reaching its tipping point here. And I am not promoting violence in the other direction. What I am promoting, though, is that we need to squash these narratives and we need to educate everybody to be like, do you see what is happening? So, folks, I encourage you to share the podcast, share it with your Democrat voting family members, friends, neighbors, whoever it is in your life that you're like, this person might at least listen to Todd Peterson. I am never mean. I keep saying that the MAGA tent is big enough for everybody. In my perfect world, we're all in the MAGA tent. Why are we not all in the America First tent? That is my goal. And so as I focus on, I do want to say this as well. I have had Royce White as a guest on my podcast. He's a black Minnesotan. He ran for U.S. Senate against Amy Klobuchar last November as an America First candidate. He's been on my show. He and I share the same values. I have more common with Royce White, and he probably doesn't want me dropping his name here, but this is just my one example. And I have a black friend, right? Like the left hates when you do that. I share more in common with Royce White than I do any white Minnesota Democrat voter, for that matter. I want to wake up white Minnesotans. This is not to say that whites are the only thing. It can only be a white country. But I did make the point in my immigration episode last week. It needs to be a white majority country. There is something unique about white people of European descent that have Judeo-Christian values. That's what built America. I don't know what else you want me to say. That is what built America, the combination of white Judeo-Christian ancestry. And other people can participate in the experiment. I welcome them to that experiment, but it can't change. It can't deviate from that. And if people want to go entirely all in, like they are in the Ozarks and Arkansas, saying, you know what? I'm looking around. I don't like what I'm seeing. I just want this to be for white people with Christian values. I'm going to raise my kids that way. I'm going to grow up. I'm going to share a community with people that share those same ideas. Fine. That's completely fine. But you will see that the left melts down over that. So let's dive into it today. Again, the persecution of white Americans escalates here. It has been going on for decades now, quietly, then in your face, and then now you got just women laid out in the street in Cincinnati here. It's only going to get worse It's going to get worse until we just call it out by name for what it is. It's that whites are under attack in America. And I know if Media Matters or these black TikTokers that we're going to play today caught wind of that, they're like, oh, this poor white guy with his privilege is complaining about whites being persecuted. Yeah, that's 100% happening. The nice way of persecuting people is saying you don't get a promotion, you don't get to get accepted, you're not going to be hired because you are a white male. So that's already happening. I don't know what else to tell people. Like, whites have been under attack in the corporate sphere and political sphere for decades at this point. No, there's no privilege of being white. There's a privilege of having values that align with the 10 Commandments. How about that? How about having a 2-parent stable household? Teaching your kids maybe to respect police officers when you interact with them. Maybe not just sitting and listening quietly in school because you're just getting trained to sit in a cubicle. But there are ways of interacting in society and just comporting yourself that align with better successful outcomes. This is not complicated either. Freedom of association is the bedrock of our Bill of Rights. I'm going to get into that when we play the clip. Wrong Think, thanks for joining. Thanks for commenting. At its core, the idea of white people building a community, and again, this is on privately held land. They purchased the land together, 40 families. This is freedom of association. Yeah, this is going to be my point exactly, Wrong Think. If you can't get a group of people to buy land, build a neighborhood, build a community, live the way you want to live, then we don't have freedom of association. We don't have the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights. This is absolutely ludicrous. But to highlight the point of whites being under attack here, this argument is not applied to blacks or Somalis when they do the exact same thing. And I literally mean the exact same thing. It is not about you can't segregate yourself, because these other communities segregate themselves all day long and they celebrate it. You got your blacks only graduation at Harvard. You got your blacks only this now. I mean, they complained for years about segregation and water fountains, and now they are doing the exact same thing. It was never about equal rights. It was never about any of that. It was simply about them attaining political power. At its core, Marxism, communism, leftism, Democrats today in 2025 care only about power. You have to understand that if I could distill some of these big ideas, it's that woke is anti-white and that the communists only care about power. That's why when you see these contradictions in thought, you're like, wait a second. You guys are celebrating the blacks buying land and doing that. Why can't the whites do it? They don't care about the contradiction. They care about power. They want blacks to be emboldened. They want whites to be subjugated. And that's as simple as that. But let's dive into this here. What story do I want to start with today? I think we got to do Cincinnati. These videos are actually pretty rough here. But let's just start with the full-on assault of whites here. Here is I think it's about a 10-second clip where we'll get to the part here. So you have concert goers in Cincinnati. They're walking down the street, and the usual suspects, the future astronauts and scholars, are all congregated there. And because they have been raised in a culture for the last 60 years to hate white people, this is also not hyperbole. You go to these families, it's probably 6 or 7 generations now of young blacks in the ghetto getting told to explicitly hate white people, not just distrust them, actively hate them. They see us as less than human. And so when these concert goers are just trying to go home for the night, you see one woman, and I saw a report that she passed away from this now. I don't know how you survive getting beat to the ground like this. This is hard to watch, but I think we got to play it because full transparency, this is the world that they are building for us to try to live in now. And that's why you have people trying to build their own communities because they don't want to be part of this anymore. But take a look at this. We'll start here in Cincinnati. I just got to point out, folks, this is attempted murder, if not outright murder. I think the woman died. I could be wrong about that. The head stomping on pavement, you should be thrown in prison for the rest of your life or just dropped out of an airplane like Pinochet used to do down in South America. That is the only solution for this. You want to head stomp a helpless victim. You deserve to get dropped off in the ocean. Yeah, Thalia says these people are animals. She is correct here. Donald Trump called MS-13 subhuman and animals. These people, again, I can't even say people. These things are also classified as animals. It's the entire culture. You got the dude doing his, it's disgusting. What does it say? Guttural gorilla response here. You've got the crowd of people that are all watching this happen and celebrating it. Not one black person in this video tried to stop it, tried to help the victims, clearly outnumbered here. What are they going to do? This could have been resolved instantly if the black people in this video decided, like, you know what? We did it. We knocked him down. We stopped them from fighting. And you're going to hear from the left, they said, well, the white guy instigated. He slapped some black dude on the face. Well, what instigated that? Why did the white person feel like he had to push back a little bit? Because he was surrounded by a group of thuggish animals. Not every black person is a thuggish animal. Just fact check me right now. These things are all animals. If they are raised in the inner city, they have been taught to not only hate white people. Oh, wrong thing. I got the clip of her next, actually. That's part of the commentary today. I have the white lib cat lady police chief talking, and she blames people like me and people like you in my audience for what happened. She says, we're circulating on social media clips of this, and it's not the full context of the story. She's more mad at us than the animals perpetrating this murderous violence. And again, everybody in this video clip needs to be arrested for aiding and abetting attempted murder. This is disgusting behavior, and these people just wanted to go to a concert and then go home, but they weren't allowed to do that. So you can see the beating this guy takes on the ground, but hold on a second, because we're going to get to the white gal too. Again, still hitting him when he's down. They are relentless. Again, there's more flips. They do the flips on the pavement, kicking him in the head. I'm outraged because folks. I am absolutely outraged watching. Again, all these people need to be dropped out of an airplane into the ocean. He cannot stand up. He cannot stand up anymore.
Woo! Woo! Oh, shit! Hands down! Oh!
I'm at the point too where I want to criminalize that sound. The I think you should be arrested for just sounding like an absolute moron. That is the level of intellect offered by this community. I think the IQ is like 70. There's a hilarious story of how, like, what is it, the Psychiatry or Psychological Association, they had to lower the IQ, otherwise half of black Americans would be functionally retarded, clinically retarded. That's where we're at now. And Fally hates the sound too, the guy howling. How impressive. Yeah, everything about this animal culture is so unimpressive here. We still got to get to this other part of the clip here.
Oh, shit! Oh, shit! My boy drunk! Oh, woo! Woo! Damn!
All right, so here we go, folks. This is the part that you thought that was bad. You can see the gal there. She's kind of got the black dress on with the stuff there. She is trying to hold back a rather large black man. I got to say, props to her. That is some courage right there. That's some balls. She's trying to de-escalate. She's trying to stop this madness, and you will see what happens for her efforts.
Oh!
All right, sucker punched in the back by some, again, animal black woman there. And then she is flattened by the dude in the white shirt right here. I am not trying to glorify this violence here. You have to see what is happening, though. It is hard to watch, but it's important to watch because this is what we are up against. Watch her just get flattened by this cowardly animal sucker punching a woman. Does it get any lower than that?
Oh!
The monkey's down, and that is the photograph of Flame Virus who is out head slams the pavement here. Again, an airplane might be too light for this creature. And the guy is howling the entire time.
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
I mean, you raise kids in their childless homes, you glorify the rap music, you glorify the gang culture, and this is what they do. These people aren't going to lose sleep over the fact that this woman got decked. They're not going to lose sleep over the fact that we watched the guy get head stomped here. They love it. They live for this. This is Animal 101 right here. Disgusting, despicable. I can't go on about this enough here. Nobody was concerned for the loss of human life, the potential loss of human life, the violence against another human being. These people are all disgusting, and I even hesitate to call them people. And Wrong Think referenced this. Did you see the Cincinnati chief of police making excuses for these thugs? This is not an exaggeration. She literally makes an excuses for these thugs. She's more mad that we're talking about this, watching this video clip, looking around the landscape and saying, gosh, whites are under assault right here. Here is her response. And again, this is, you could not script this. If you thought to yourself, I wonder what I would say if I were a cat lady police chief. And by the way, why are all these big cities helmed by just gross old white women? When I think of police chiefing, the last thing I think about is some bad haircut. Like, she can't even take care of herself physically. These are the people making the rules, though, and she is mad at you for watching this video.
Topic I want to cover real quick. Social media and journalism and the role it plays in this incident. And yes, guys, that's you. That is you. Social media, the post that we've seen, does not depict the entire incident. That is one version of what occurred. At times, social media and mainstream media and their commentaries are a misrepresentation of the circumstances surrounding any given event. What that does, that causes us some difficulties in thoroughly investigating the activity and enforcing.
Fact checked false. So again, she is going on about the social media response because, again, these animals filmed it all for us. There's your investigation. Did you know? I'm not a police expert. I'm not a policeman. But I would imagine you can still conduct an investigation with or without social media, because you know what you do? You now have IDs of all these people. You can go interview them. You have the victims that you will interview. Now we know everybody we need to go after thanks to social media spreading these videos and images. What part of an investigation gets harder because we have more available evidence? So again, none of that makes any sense on its face here. But how can you stand up in front of people? I don't know the full conference. Maybe I'm not going to listen to the whole conference, by the way. Maybe she says, my heart goes out to the victims here. I'm so sorry that this woman got sucker punched from behind and then smacked in the face by a dude and her head hit the pavement. And I think she died. But we all know what happened. I don't have to see any more video evidence to know what happened. Here's what happened in my mind. Again, I don't know for certain, but I'm just laying this out. You have people leaving a jazz concert in Cincinnati. They have to walk back to their hotel or car. Maybe they're going to a bar or restaurant afterwards. And they encounter these thugs who have nothing better to do with their life than go out there and make grovelly, guttural, howling noises and congregate together and then look for trouble. And so when you've got 20 or 30 black people at night in the inner city and you're a small group of white people, number one, you are not a threat to that large crowd of blacks. But I guarantee the blacks went up to them and started harassing them, screaming at them because they hate white people already. You have to understand, they just hate white people. They don't view them as human beings, which ironically, I don't view them as human beings on the other side because they are not. That's the difference. Like, we are human beings. Those are not human beings. Those are animals. So they get in their face. They do their John and their jabbing. That big guy, the white guy, he was probably like, get out of my face. I'm with my girl. I got to stand up for myself. I'm a man. Get out of my face, buddy. And then that's when the whole situation goes to hell. There's your investigation. These white people, they're like, well, maybe the white person said something to them. No, this is entirely on the thuggish black community that instigated this. And the police chief is out there saying, well, because you're talking about it now, our investigation is going to be harder. What she is really saying is it's going to be really hard for us to defend these thug animals because everybody knows the truth about this now. That's what she's really complaining about. They're mad that we know the truth and we've reached conclusions before they do whatever nonsense investigation they need to conduct. And again, the investigation should be we arrested every black in that video, and now they're all in jail for attacking innocent, helpless bystanders, killing them. There's your investigation. I just did the police work. I will wait for my check for contributing to this investigation effort here. But again, maybe she said she's sorry about what happened, but I don't think she is. This woman is more upset that we're talking about it and pointing out facts than she is that her usual suspects harmed white Americans. Oh, God. We went back to the video.
He's in thoroughly investigating the activity and enforcing the law. Because what happens, that social media post and your coverage of it distorts the content of what actually
Nope.
happened.
Not distorted, just revealed.
And it makes our job more difficult.
Oh no. Guys, her job is more difficult. All right, I take back everything I said. I am so sorry that I made her job more difficult. The police chief, whose job it is to investigate crimes, I am so sorry that you won't be able to release these thugs back onto the street because the backlash would be too swift. Oh, we saw this white gal get decked, head slams the pavement, knocked out cold. I'm so sorry that you're going to have to hold that guy accountable now. That's what she is really saying. She wants the guy that punched the woman in the face to be able to be back on the street tomorrow. And now that's not going to be happening because we had social media spread this video.
Go ahead, right here.
Thank you. 2 questions. Where were the nearest officers?
In the central business section. They were working. They were both in vehicles. And like I said, they had to maneuver through the traffic.
My second question is, you had said social media, news media distorted the content of what actually happened. What exactly was distorted? I understand that there was multiple views of the video, but...
All right, this journalist right here, I don't know who's speaking, again, calling out the police, just saying, what about this was distorted? Was it edited? Was it clipped in a certain way? What was distorted about what we just watched? We watched 2 minutes of some guy howling, recording it, and we saw it all play out. Let's see how she responds, though, when that distortion interferes with her investigation. It makes her job harder.
Exactly what led up to this? I mean, what was distorted?
Yeah, so I think by the irresponsibility with social media is it just shows one side of the equation quite frequently without context, without...
Do you think she was complaining? Yeah, I got Jason in the chat here saying, now do George Floyd. Do you mean that edited clip where he was in the car saying he couldn't breathe 20 minutes before he eventually overdosed because his heart couldn't handle the massive amount of drugs in his system? Was she complaining about social media when Donald Trump called neo-Nazis and white supremacists fine people? Is that what she's talking about, taking clips out of context or distorting the truth? Or is she just mad right now because Democrats' favorite demographic did it again, and now we all see it, and we're over it. We're tired of being victims of violence in our own country. Yeah, the journalist calls her out. Hand clap from Mickey, absolutely. Yeah, and she's out there. She's like, well, distortion, I mean, social media. And then she just says the same thing over and over again, like, well, you see, social media. No. What about this video was edited? She can't answer it here. Beyond a fool. She is beyond a fool. Again, all by design. They want incompetence. DEI means incompetence rises to the top. They like it that way. They create a system of a narco tyranny. You as a white person, just reverse this for a second here. Imagine you got a group of whites, I'll say white teens, and they're all hanging out in their area, and the blacks leave their, I can't even come up on the spot here with a good analogy for blacks. Let's say the blacks are leaving their barbecue, I don't know. And there's like 2 blacks, a guy and a gal, and they walk through a crowd of whites. Number one, the whites would just completely ignore them, if we're being honest. But let's say the whites get in their face and say, hey, black, what are you doing in my neighborhood? Because that's what white people say. And then they start assaulting the blacks, and then some frat guy punches the black girl in the face and knocks her out cold and kills her. Do you think the police chief would have the same response, saying, guys, pump the brakes on the social media clips, all the distortions of facts. Let's get the evidence here. Maybe the black guy called them cracker. So we got to get to the bottom of this before we come to conclusions. Or do you think there would be 24/7 coverage on CNN, MSNBC? Do you think this police chief would be out there saying white supremacy is the biggest problem in America? And before I continue with that analogy, that is exactly what would happen. If the roles were reversed and you had a small group of blacks surrounded and attacked by a roving gang of whites, because that's so common in America, it would not be like this at all. They hate you. They hate you. She's glad this happened. She's mad that she's going to have to hold a black accountable here. People like her. Again, white libs will be the downfall of America because people like her, they vote the same, they're in positions of power, and they will never be convinced that they are wrong. All this is awful here. And again, Fally makes a great point too. She's mad because she looks bad at her job. Correct. The previous question, if you missed that, they were like, where are the cops when all of this is happening? And she's like, well, they had to get through traffic. So there was no police presence in downtown Cincinnati. At the end of the night after a big concert, normally you see people parked there for public safety. There were no cops nearby. So she gets called out for that. Now she's complaining that social media is a big problem. Social media is really the problem here, not black thug animals attacking innocent whites for no other reason than that they are white. I can't with this story. I am so livid. You need to be livid too. That picture of the white gal just out cold on the street, you should be as pissed off at that as I am. All right, we got to switch gears. We're half an hour into the show. We've done one clip so far. I'm going to get into the Sydney Sweeney thing really fast. I got 2 video clips. We won't talk about a whole lot. Like I said earlier, Sydney Sweeney, I think I'd give her a 6. Sydney Sweeney she's attractive. She is known for her chest. I mean, Sydney Sweeney, face, whatever, but she is known for her chest. She's not shy to expose it. And honestly, good for her. This is what sells in Hollywood. This is what sells in marketing. She's young. She's beautiful. She's got a very limited window. Get yours. I mean, get yours here. For years, though, we had the large, obese, unhealthy black people in their plus-size lingerie. You've got the catwalk shows of Victoria's Secret where these people's stomachs were folding over their underwear, and we're supposed to celebrate that as beautiful, and we love diversity. You didn't see a skinny white girl anywhere, and I mean anywhere. So American Eagle, again, they're not brave. They're just finger in the wind here. American Eagle's like, I think this DEI stuff is kind of getting some backlash here. I'm watching Target put pride stuff in the stores. You know, I'm watching these other companies push out Dylan Mulvaney. I don't want to be Bud Light anymore. So American Eagle simply says, let's put a beautiful white girl on there because sex sells and it's not controversial. Well, it turns out it was really controversial. You've got black people saying that this is fascism. You got fat white girls saying, ugly girls, by the way, just jealous of her beauty. At the end of the day, they're just jealous of her beauty here. But this is all fascism now.
That got me too. And I don't know why. Maybe because it's just so blatant. I keep thinking that people just are not gonna believe us until we're hung out there. But then even then, I feel like they'll be like, oh no. Kind of like they are with.
Again, it's hard to kind of grasp the core of her argument. Distilled it down, if I had to boil it down, she sees a beautiful white woman finally featured in major advertising. Sydney Sweeney there. And again, the shirt unbuttoned is not an accident. How many people are going to buy American Eagle because they're like, well, I want to fit in that shirt now. And she says because there's a white girl on an advertisement, black people are going to be hung. That is the connection. Those are the dots they connected. Here's a pretty white girl in advertising, which was always the norm until a couple years ago. And because we featured a white girl on American Eagle's ad, like American Eagle, is that even still cool? When I was a kid in the 90s, you had to have your Jinko jeans in middle school. And then like Abercrombie and American Eagle were the brands you had to wear, and you spent like $60 on a shirt. Otherwise, you got ridiculed and thrown in a locker. So American Eagle, I think, has been irrelevant for 20 years. Maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe if people have teenage kids, they can tell me differently. I know when I go to like Goodwill with my kid, because we always pick out like a cheap toy at Goodwill, because who's going to pay like $20 for a stuffy or an Elsa doll at Target? But I always see American Eagle stuff on the racks there. And she says because we have her in an ad, black people are going to die. She literally said that here. I can't even follow this logic, but it's so hard to be a black girl. 4 years, never mind the fact that 4 years, every ad was with a black family, a biracial family. I think, what was it, Pfizer? It was one of those drug companies or like a toothbrush company. Remember the Super Bowl commercial, The Talk? And so you were led to believe that like only black people tell their kids how to interact with cops because white kids won't get killed by cops and white kids don't get pulled over. It's like, no, I got The Talk. But people are going to die because of this. And then here is the Uggo that is just simply jealous of Sydney Sweeney's beauty.
Surprised that a company whose name is literally American Eagle is making...
Oh, good one. Guys, she is so smart. This company's name is American Eagle. We live in America. I can't believe I didn't put these pieces together before. Are we surprised that a company named American Eagle? I mean, if they were named America First Eagle, maybe TM, patent pending on that, by the way. Jason, we're going to run that. America First Eagle. American Eagle. So she's really brilliant. You know you're dealing with a genius already because she put the pieces together here. That company name is not an accident. Let's see what else she has to say.
Fascist propaganda like this? Probably not, but it's still really shocking. Like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes. Like, that is Nazi propaganda.
Guys, it's Nazi propaganda when you have a play on words. She's wearing jeans, and she has her genetics that gave her beauty. I can't believe I didn't see it before either. This is clearly Nazi propaganda. God forbid in America, which is still hanging on by a thread to be a white majority nation, American Eagle says, I don't want to be Bud Lighted here. I'm going to put a beautiful white girl on there because at least the consumers, most people buying American Eagle, this just in, are white. Do you think any of our attackers in Cincinnati were wearing American Eagle? Or were they wearing, I don't even know what blacks wear anymore. Is it FUBU? Is FUBU kind of dating myself too? That was the thing in the 90s and early 2000s. I don't know what they wear anymore. I don't think any of those black thugs were wearing their like polo American Eagle, looking all dapper and frat boy. Absolutely not. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but American Eagle is playing to its customer base. I mean, it's not hard to figure out marketing there, but they did it. And because they did it now, they picked a blonde girl in a white majority country who has a large chest. I mean, guys, if you're looking at this ad, did you notice that she was blonde or did you notice that her shirt was unbuttoned? But this gal, oh, well, does she have blue eyes even? I can't tell. Nazi propaganda, though. You feature a white girl. The left completely melted down over this, completely melted down. And I like Mickey's comment here. Oh, Jason. Jason's got a great comment. We'll get to that in a second. But Mickey says, oh no, a healthy BMI, blonde hair, blue eyed white female is an AD. Blame AE for everything. This never got talked enough about. I actually got dinged on Facebook before joining the American Tribune. I had my old website, the Blue State Conservative. I think the URL doesn't work anymore, so don't try going there. But I did an article on Lizzo. Lizzo, you know, is the James Madison flute playing she is an elephant. She is an elephant. I think she's on Ozempic now. Well, she said she cleaned up her diet, but they're all on Ozempic. No one talked enough about the fact that like we are promoting obesity and diabetes and just an unhealthy lifestyle. No one that is fat is healthy. You might be overweight. I'm not making fun of you for being overweight, but it's not healthy and it shouldn't be glorified. We were promoting body positivity and sacrificing health. There's a vaccine, there's Ozempic. You can just take a pharmaceutical and you'll be just as healthy as before if you weigh 300 pounds. You shouldn't have to buy 2 airplane seats. That's the passenger's problem for sitting in the middle next to you. So we're promoting someone that looks healthy, is sexually appealing. Like, this is simply marketing, but to the left now, this is just straight up Nazi propaganda. Because didn't you know that the Nazis were also Aryan and they were white, and they featured things in their country that resonated with their citizens? I can't believe it. And Jason, her initials are SS. Are you connecting the dots here? I think Jason wins the comment of the day. Jason, I'm going to send you a free hat. Sydney Sweeney, SS. If that doesn't get any more Gestapo, I don't know what does here. Boy, American Eagle is playing like 4D chess with their advertising right here. They could have chosen any busty white gal, but they chose Sydney Sweeney for SS. They should have done like the Lightning SS too. All right, but that's Sydney Sweeney. I had to talk about it here. Like, there is so much more meltdowns over this. Sydney Sweeney, though, I have to reiterate, is the first attractive white woman we have seen in advertising, mainstream advertising, in years, at least since George Floyd's death. And they finally returned to the model that sells, American Eagle. I don't know. Do you think American Eagle is going to apologize? Will they apologize for Nazi propaganda? I think they're just going to stay quiet about this. They should, or they should just be like, we apologize for nothing. I would love for them to come out with a statement and just be like, what are we sorry for? We featured an attractive woman. We're not the first company to do it. We won't be the last. And our sales just went up like 100%. So no, we apologize for nothing. It'll be interesting to see how American Eagle responds to this backlash. Again, I would guess they just don't say anything. I would love for them to come out and just fully defend it, but I don't think they'll do that either. But man, the left downs are insane. We could have done a whole episode on people melting down over their just straight up jealousy and brainwashing, because at the end of the day, they use the word Nazi because they are out of ideas. They know it resonates with their woke dem base. And it is just a continuation of the fear mongering and the propaganda. And again, going back to the show, it's the persecution of white Americans. You're not allowed to be white and beautiful and amplified in society. If you're a white person in society, you are merely supposed to exist and get on your knee, cry at the coffin of George Floyd, be an ally for the wokies, tolerate the biracial and black commercials, tolerate your kids getting groomed in government school systems. That's all you're allowed to do if you're a white person in America. The response explicitly supports this. The left supports the idea that if you're a white person, and again, Sydney Sweeney is beautiful, but it could be any white person. The gal that got knocked down in Cincinnati wouldn't be featured in American Eagle ad. Same thing. It is all connected. You're not allowed to be celebrated, defended. You are merely allowed to exist for the communist left and then ultimately get exterminated. That's where we are at. Yeah, and Mickey says they have nothing to apologize for. I would really like to see them come out and just be like, we apologize for nothing. I think they're just going to say nothing if I had to guess. All right, we are going to clear out the studio here with some of the videos. we are going to finish up with this story then today. We'll kind of round out the hour here. I bet we go about an hour today. So there was a town in Arkansas. Again, white people came together. They purchased private land. They own the land, and they decided they wanted to build their own community and do their own thing on it. You own a house. I own a house. I can do what I want in the house. Don't tell anyone that I didn't get permits for a few things in my house. It is my house. But you're allowed to associate freely. You are allowed to buy stuff and do stuff with that land. I think this is NBC reporting on it. So listen to the tone, listen to the questions, listen to the angle they're playing here. And then after this, I'm going to play a CNN clip of blacks doing the same thing. And I'm going to do a local broadcast, again, from my backyard, Lakeville, Minnesota, my hometown, my childhood hometown. My parents still live there in Lakeville, Minnesota, celebrating the purchase of land for Somalis to build their own Somali community. And as Jason points out, it's in the middle of nowhere, which is even worse because Lakeville, Minnesota is home to like 80,000 people, mostly white still, I think. It's going to be smack dab in the suburbs, whereas this one's not even by anybody. You wouldn't even know it existed if you lived down there, if not for the blatant bias of our media. So let's take a watch.
No Jews, no gays. High up in the Ozark Hills, in the state of Arkansas, dozens of people have been working hard, building houses and a new type of community. It's called Return to the Land, and it is a town open to white people only. They are millennials and Gen Z, and this is a new update of age-old prejudice.
What we've done here is establish a place where we have control over who our neighbors are, and that is just for the sake of preserving, our culture.
And that culture, effectively, we're saying this is a white culture, a whites-only place.
White American culture.
But what this sounds like is bringing back segregation. Is that a fair assessment?
It's free association. So we're not trying to keep other people down. This is a small settlement in the middle of the Ozarks.
But they are being kept out, even if...
you don't let everyone into your home.
Around 40 people live here. Hundreds more from across the world.
There is so much to talk about. I stopped it there because he said there are about 40 people living here. 40 white people, folks. That's all it took. Remember when the South Africans came here? I think we had, 50 South Africans rescued from the murderous regime over there. And the left, which previously let in 20 million illegals under Joe Biden, fact check me all you want on that YouTube. It was probably higher, by the way. They're going to be like, you're wrong about 20 million. It was 30 million under Joe Biden. We let in 30 million illegals, and then Donald Trump's like, here's 50 South Africans that might get murdered tomorrow. Their farms are going to get robbed. They're going to go get raped by these black thugs. We're expecting a delivery today. I think I have to sign for something. We'll see what happens. But you weren't allowed to do that. 50 South Africans, but because they were white, that was suddenly when Democrats realized they don't love every immigrant. You can't have a white immigrant. So that kind of took the mask off here. But again, same thing here. 40 people, 40 whites bought land. They associated freely. They're allowed to do what they want on privately held land. You don't have to like it if you're on the left, but they're allowed to do it. But that was too much. You can't have 40 white people coming together and building a community. No gays, no Jews, no blacks. They just laid it all out in front here. And again, the reporter asking his questions here, yeah, he was baiting him with the questions, very targeted, like, so wait a minute, you're going to exclude people? You're going to exclude people?
World have paid to be members. And while the men do the physical labour, the women take care of the children who live here full time. It could be a very loving community if you're part of the community, but...
So here he goes again. It's a wonderful community if you're allowed to be in the community. You're supposed to hate this. You're supposed to feel bad for the people who aren't in it. I'm just going to continue it without comment here.
If you're black, or if you're Jewish, or if you're gay, you can't be part of that community.
They can have their own communities, and they already do.
You might be wondering how any of this can be legal. Return to the Land is structured as a private members association, which they believe allows them to discriminate on the basis of ethnicity, along with other factors. That has yet to be tested in the courts and may well fail. The Arkansas Attorney General has said his office is now reviewing the matter as a result of our reporting, and that there is no room for racial discrimination in Arkansas or anywhere.
My camera just fell. All right, so we're not allowed to do that because it's discriminative. I thought I fixed everything here, folks. You're not allowed to do that. It's discriminating on race. This is just, whoever is the producer of the show needs to be lectured a little bit. Yep, they're discriminating on race. They're only letting white people come in. So we can't let that happen. You know what? They bought that, but it might go against some of the laws here. And I had questions already. I was like, well, I was in Arizona. I lived in Phoenix for a while. Del Webb built a 55 and over community. My parents live in a 55 and older community. So can you discriminate on age? And then I thought to myself, I remember a story where blacks did the exact same thing. Freedom, Georgia, look it up. And just so you know, you need to hate the media more than you do. You didn't think you could, but you need to. Here's CNN talking about the exact same thing. Blacks coming together, pooling their money, buying land, building a blacks-only community. It's the same thing, except the races are different. And listen to the glowing coverage from CNN.
You hear that? That is the sound of freedom. A lush and rugged expanse about 130 miles south of Atlanta, just shy of 97 acres. It's undeveloped, unincorporated, and it has new owners.
It feels amazing. It feels really amazing. I cry every time I come here.
Renee Walters is one of them. She's president of the Freedom Georgia Initiative. It's a collective of 19 black families who recently bought this land. This dream all started a few weeks ago during Renee's typical morning call with her friend Ashley Scott.
She said, Ashley, did you see the article about Toomsboro for sale?
It turns out that the entire small town was never for sale, just a bundle of a few dozen homes and buildings. So Ashley, a real estate agent, looked for listings in the area and found one for this.
And it was just such a beautiful piece of land. It was affordable, and it just made sense that we could create something that would be amazing for our families.
Why were these two women interested in the prospect of buying a town in the first place?
It really was when we saw what happened with Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the protest.
We both have black husbands, we both have black sons, and I was starting to get overwhelmed and have a sense of anxiety when my husband would leave the house to go to work.
So watching our people protesting in the streets, while it is important, and I want people to stay out in the streets, bringing attention to the injustices of black people, we needed to create a space and a place where we could be a village again, a tribe again.
So Renee and Ashley reached out to family and friends, and together they bought what they intend to name Freedom, Georgia, a new black city.
We don't intend for it to be exclusively black, but we do intend for it to be pro-black in every way.
Jessica Gordon-Amard is an economist and an expert on black collectives.
I've found tremendous benefits to individuals, families, and the communities that are involved in it, including, the economic stability and prosperity, but also leadership development, social capital development, other kinds of human capital development. And so it's really a win-win for everybody involved to be involved.
The owners hosted the Big Black Campout over Labor Day weekend. Supporters drove in from across the country. The plan is to introduce farming next, create a lake for sustainable fishing, facilities for recreation, and eventually develop a fully operational, expanded city.
Okay, folks, just so I understand the rules here, if you are white and you purchase land with other whites and you buy the land with the intent to build a community of like-minded people, that's bad. And if you're black and you do it, that's good. And I even heard the expert herself, this is why you shouldn't send your kids to college. I heard it was good for the individuals. It was good for the community. It develops human capital, creates stability. So all of that was good. And then the news coverage, though, it's just the cherry on top here. It sounds like freedom. It sounds like freedom out in Georgia, where the blacks came together and bought their land here. But when the whites did it, wait a minute, you're not going to let in the gays and the Jews and the blacks? This is horrible. You're a racist. We're going to sue you. In Arkansas, you're like, well, that's deep red Arkansas. Even their attorney general office is investigating that. Were there any calls for investigation into Freedom, Georgia? Hold on a second. Wait, you're telling me this is a blacks only? And they framed it up. They're like, no, it's just pro-black. It's not only black. I mean, that's all a lie right there. You know what? Maybe Jason, we talked about traveling. Maybe the American Tribune should fly down to Freedom, Georgia, and see if we could get invited into their commune. That could be fun. The Freedom, Georgia story, this is from 4 years ago. They're telling you that Ahmaud Arbery was an innocent jogger. George Floyd was just an innocent black man who got suffocated by the police here. So they had to escape all of that because their lives were in danger. Meanwhile, I'm showing clips of white people's lives actually being in danger. And so families are like, I'm out. I am tapping out of this country here. I don't want to be murdered by these animals. And that's bad. You're not allowed to flee. You're supposed to stay and get murdered by these animals. But the coverage could not be more opposite. The narrative is exactly the same. And you are allowed to freely associate. Look, I said this on the podcast last week with Jason. I disagree with every motivation of the black people as they're telling them. You know, we're getting hunted down. I'm scared when he goes to work. It's all a lie. There's no white supremacy in America. There is no threat of being killed if you are following the law and following orders. Zero threat right now. If you are white and you walk down the street, you might actually get murdered by a black person. So the motivations of the black people, entirely wrong. But the idea of them building a community, I fully support. You want your black only community? Like, look, folks, I'm getting to the point where I will encourage you to all go to Freedom, Georgia. Get out of my cities, get out of my towns. You go do you. Set up a black commune far, far away from me, and I will pay for your moving fees. I will personally carry your beds and your couches into the van and get you out of here at this point. So I am all for Freedom, Georgia happening, but we don't get a Freedom, Georgia if we don't get the return to the land. Whites, as it turns out, are just as entitled and have all the more reason to create their only whites-only enclaves because society hates them and wants them dead. But like I said, I am fully on board with both of these movements here. We tried to desegregate. We tried to be a melting pot. We tried diversity and multiculturalism. It's all a massive failure. Now, we don't want to... the threat of balkanization, are we still going to let them vote and we're going to have to secede, or we're going to have two separate countries? And we already have two countries. It is what it is. Half this country voted for Kamala Harris. There's no saving them. So we're already divided. We might as well live amongst ourselves as well. But it's insane. It is insane how CNN covered this story. And then in the same breath, you had the guy with his just like, I think it was a British accent in his NPR voice, because nothing sounds more sincere and genuine and intelligent than a British accent talking slowly like this. I hate everything. I hate everything about this. But I'm not done, because it's not just the blacks that are allowed to do it. It's the Somalis too. Minnesota, home to the largest Somali resettlement in the entire country. And they wanted to buy, again, not just in the middle of nowhere, smack dab in my hometown of Lakeville, Minnesota, a thriving suburban community, by the way. And Jason said that 9% of my Lakeville hometown is now foreign born. That will only go up. So what happens is when you bring in the Somalis, they all move south. The blacks were moving south. Now the Somalis are moving south. Just north of Lakeville, it's a city called Burnsville, Minnesota. It is Mogadishu. Like, you have to leave Burnsville, Apple Valley. It is taken over by Somalis now, and they keep going south. It is a horde of locusts moving south. So they said, we're going to buy 40 acres, smack dab in this white upper middle class community. But again, let's listen to the coverage. Let's talk about how the Somalis buying their own plot of land is a good thing.
Lakeville is under investigation by the state attorney general.
We first told you about this last night. Investigative reporter Eric Rasmussen is here now with the details about the allegations that the developer is misleading customers.
And for its part, the AG's office says those customers collectively have already paid more than $1 million to live in a community that, as of right now...
All right, so I'm going to pause this for a second. A little more context is needed. If you've been following along Minnesota politics, this camera is just a disaster today. So Feed Our Families was a $250 million scam during COVID. A group of Somalis, I think there were about 30 of them that have been charged right now, basically lied to the state. So during COVID, none of the kids went to school, which was the only good thing to come out of COVID. And they still needed to get food. So the state of Minnesota Department of Education was still required to feed all the kids that were not in school. And it was ripe for fraud. So dozens of Somalis got together and they just billed the state. They didn't feed anybody. They didn't have any distribution. They didn't have anything. But the state didn't ask for that. They just said, we need to feed kids, and here's unlimited COVID monies to make it happen. So they defrauded Minnesota to the tune of $250 million. Just billed the government for feeding kids. Didn't happen. And the state paid out. So now people are starting to get arrested by the DOJ, Trump's DOJ. Notice that the Biden administration didn't want to go after them. Notice that Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, our state attorney general, didn't want to go after them. So there is some accountability here. But $250 million, and that's why this development is getting held up right now. because the Somali thieves, and if you're a Somali, I don't even have to say the word thief. That is just baked into the cake. If you're Somali, you're a thief. That's how this works. They decided to use the stolen taxpayer money, our money, by the way. They hate us, but they love our tax dollars. They were going to use stolen money to then purchase land here. You might be asking yourself, how is it that these poor immigrant refugees from Somalia that arrived yesterday were able to get $1 million to buy into this plan? And the answer is because it was all stolen money. There is no Somali in Minnesota that has a net worth over $1 million that has earned it legitimately. The $1 million also stolen. The $250 million from Feed Our Families just got circulated down to this project. And there's another one in Lino Lakes. I think there was a third one. I can't remember where it was. They're trying to build these all over the Twin Cities, by the way, folks. So when you hear about it's getting investigated by Keith Ellison in Minnesota, not because it's racially segregating or it's Somali only, it's simply because the political pressure was too much. And he's like, I don't know where you guys got that money. It's probably from Feed Our Families. And yes, it was.
Does not exist. The developers insist they will finish the project, but they may have to answer to a judge first. Tree-lined streets with beautiful new homes, even a community center. This is what Nelosha Lakeville looks like online. In reality, these 40 acres just off I-35 remain untouched. And now the Minnesota Attorney General's office wants to know why.
We offer more than just homes.
On Nelosha's website, CEO Abdulwali Abdullahi describes a walkable community specifically for Somali Americans living in Minnesota. But as Abdullahi's company
Doesn't that sound nice? It's just a community for Somalis that'll be racially segregated from everyone else. And even if you are a Lakeville resident that's been there for generations and you're white, this isn't for you, folks. And that's okay because they're Somali and they get their own place. Did you hear the music in the background interviewing him? Are you listening to the tones, the message here? This is a great thing. If only the state attorney general wouldn't investigate right now, just build it. Just build it for our poor Somalis here. You can be black. You can be Somali. And I looked up what Nelosha means in Somali. It means life. Doesn't that sound nice? It's just life. So they're allowed to do this. They are allowed to do this. They are celebrated, and the blacks are celebrated. But you as a white person, if you want to return to the land and escape this nonsense, this anti-white movement in America, no, you're not allowed. We're going to stop you. That's racist. That's Nazi. That's bigoted. No gays, no Jews, no blacks. Are the reporters asking this guy, hey, Abdulwali, are you going to let white Lakeville residents move into your community? Did they even ask him that question? And if they did ask him the question, he'd be like, no, this is for Somalis. They'd be like, well, that makes sense. Somalis need to have their own Somali space. Everyone else is allowed to have their own space. You're not allowed to. And it goes back further than this. As a white in America, you're not allowed to be an American because you're on stolen land. And if you arrived yesterday like Abdulwali did here, you are allowed to be American and carve out your own space in America, colonize it, if you will, conquest, if you will. We have been here for 500 years as whites. We are not allowed to say we are American because it was not our land. It was stolen land. You'll never have a home. Somalis, we could fly them home to Somalia tomorrow and they would be home. Where can white people go? There is nowhere else that white people can go. This is our home. And if you try to carve out 100 acres in Arkansas, you are vilified for it. Vilified for it.
Collected $25,000 pre-reservation fees from families. The AG says Nelosha has not even completed the purchase of this land. One big snag, the previous owners of the property include a defendant charged in the massive Feeding Our Future fraud investigation. And the land is still tied up in that legal action by the federal.
All right, there is so much to unwind here. And Fally, thanks for your comment. Fally says, Todd is so wonderful. Honestly, folks, the show is wonderful because you're all part of it. Mickey, Fally, we had Wrong Think earlier. Jason was in the chat earlier here. The show is fun because you're all engaged and part of it here. I have a good time doing this here. Did you catch, though, where not only is the developer Somali, Abdulwali or whatever his name is, it doesn't matter, I don't care. He is trying to buy this land from another Somali. Another Somali already owns this parcel. It's not like it's owned by some white farming family from way back when, which is a lot of what Lakeville was. Lakeville was a farming town when I was a kid. I tried to tell my wife that. This is a fun story. My friends enjoy this. When I was dating my wife, I was, what's the word here? I was trying to court my wife, if that's a thing anymore. The boomer audience will appreciate that. I don't think people court their future wives anymore. I was trying to impress her as much as I could, so I lied. Like Lakeville, Minnesota, where I grew up in a development in a cul-de-sac here, but southern Lakeville was all farming. And 20 years before my family moved in, it was a brand new development. That was forest and farmland. Lakeville was farmland. And so my wife is from like rural Minnesota, like actually rural Minnesota. Grew up on a hobby farm. And I said, I'm from Lakeville. We had farms in Lakeville. And I remember the first time she came to my house to meet my parents, she's like, you live in a development in a cul-de-sac. What part of this is farming? So she still gives me a hard time for that, but it worked. It was an innocent lie, and it worked because she thought she was marrying some like farmhand. But no, the developer here, the guy that owned the land wasn't a farmer. It was a lot owned by a Somali already, and he bought the land from stolen tax dollars. And that's the hang up here. The hang up is not that the Somalis are going to be racially exclusive to whites. God dang it. This camera is driving me crazy, folks. No, the only problem in the story, all right, it is what it is. The only problem in the story is that the money that they used to buy the land in the first place was stolen tax dollars. And now one Somali company is going to buy the land from another Somali holding company. Do you see how this corruption works? This is straight up laundering with your stolen tax dollars. Again, I say this a lot, but I just hate everything about this. I hate everything about this.
Government. In a motion filed late Thursday, the Attorney General says, despite representing to customers that their reserved homes would be move-in ready in November 2023, the reality of the development project is bleak. The city of Lakeville says no plans have been submitted for the city to conduct any type of review. All of it prompting investigators to tell the court the state AG has reasonable grounds to believe Nolosha has violated, is violating, or will violate Minnesota law. An allegation.
Do you think Minnesota law includes something from the Civil Rights Act that says you're not allowed to racially discriminate? Now, folks, I am on board with racial discrimination. I think you should be allowed to racially discriminate. If you're a job and you only want to hire white people, I think that should be your prerogative. If you're a job and you only want to hire black people, that should be your prerogative. If you want to buy land and only allow white people to live on it or black people live on it, you should be allowed to do that too. The Civil Rights Act needs to be revoked. There's a lot of momentum over on X right now about making that happen. The Civil Rights Act was a disaster. It needs to be revoked. You should be allowed to discriminate. And all the white libs out there that are like, well, I'll never give my money to a company that only hires white people or only serves white people, then fine. The market will figure it out. If you're a company that just caters to whites or blacks, either you have a customer base or you do not. If there's enough public outcry over you catering to a certain group or only employing or serving certain groups, the market will figure that out here. I have no problem with that whatsoever. You should be allowed to discriminate. In my world, I mean, the Somalis wouldn't be here in my world. They would all be flown home to their refugee camps in Kenya because they destroyed their country. They can fix their country. They don't get to come here and ruin my country instead. But in theory, yeah, they should be allowed to do this. The blacks should be allowed to do that. The whites should be allowed to do that. You are allowed to associate freely. It is called the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution. You have freedom of association. But again, the point here is that if you are white, you are not allowed to do that. If you are a black or a Somali, the corporate media will love and support this idea all day long. If you are a white person, they will vilify you. If you're a white person walking home from a concert, they will murder you. If you're a white person on an ad, a single ad, by the way, it's not like every company hired Sydney Sweeney on the same day. Bud Light didn't hire Sydney Sweeney. All the other woke companies, it's not like Target has a Sydney Sweeney month. They still push rainbows in front of your kids to groom your children. One person, if you do one thing, though, as a white guy, boom, you're out of here. You're a demon. You're a fascist. You're a Nazi. How dare you exclude the blacks, gays, and Jews in your Ozark, Arkansas town? It's like, gosh, are you surprised that someone in the Ozarks might not want the gays and the blacks? Like, are you just waking up today? Like, no, they don't want them down there. Just like the blacks and freedom didn't want them, just like the Somalis don't want us. The Somalis I do treat differently. I actually don't think immigrants should be allowed to do this. Yeah, let me amend this. This ties into my commentary last week. If you're a black American, blacks have been here a long time, I am fine with you buying a community. If you're an immigrant, you should be mandated to assimilate. Immigrants don't get to come here and carve out a new country that just uses all of our resources. If you want to have little Somalia, go back to Somalia. I will pay for that. Heck, I will let stolen tax dollars be used to fly all of these goons, these third world monkeys back to Somalia. But no, if you're an immigrant community, you don't get to do this. I changed my mind in the middle of the show here. Blacks, whites, yes. If you're an American, yes. Carve out your own space. associate freely. If you're an immigrant, you don't get to carve out your space. If you want to be by other people, go back to your own home country. Somalia already exists, however decrepit and awful it might be. You don't need to buy land in Lakeville, Minnesota, white Lakeville, Minnesota, and make a new Somalia. There is already a Somalia. I can't go anywhere else. Blacks in America that have been here a long time can't go anywhere else. We are here. We're baked into the process. No, you as an immigrant, you have two choices. Assimilate to our culture or go home.
Lahi denies.
The challenges.
All right, you have to listen to the music in the background here, folks. It's quiet, but it just, again, it's the coverage of this here, giving him that like epic theatrical release of like, look what he's doing.
Facing our community are only getting worse.
The things facing our Somali community are only getting worse. Gosh, you know what? You know what was worse? You having Ilhan Omar's dad genocide millions of you guys in the 1980s and 90s. That was pretty bad. What problems do they face here? Oh, you mean white people in Minnesota that didn't ask for your resettlement are upset that you're changing the demographics of their community forever? Irrevocably changing the culture in their little white sleepy towns? You mean that backlash? The deserved backlash? I didn't want you here. You don't even want to be here. You're building your own parcels of land in my backyard because you don't even want to be here. No, you don't. You're not, number one, you're not getting persecuted. Everything is given for free. Folks, if you're ever driving in Minnesota and you leave in your anywhere you are at this point, if you see a minivan or a big beater suburban-like vehicle, just look in there and it will be a Somali family. And then just understand that they didn't pay for that. They're driving to their little apartment building that they also don't pay for. They're in the grocery store buying food that they're not paying for. They get handed everything. And then these losers have the gall to say, it's not safe here. I am not getting enough here. So I'm going to go out and steal millions of your tax dollars instead, white Americans, and hate you for it. But take your money and then buy my own land and build a little Somalia and can just raise kids to hate you as well. Man. Yeah, Jason, I had Jason pop on the show to start off. I was like, Jason, how's my audio sound? He's like, you're a little quiet. And I said, don't worry, Jason. As the show gets going, I'm going to be outraged. I am outraged, folks. Like, we are hitting I think we've crossed the tipping point, to be honest here, but just the stories this week. And I didn't even cover all of them that are happening here. But again, Return to Land, Sydney Sweeney, Cincinnati attack here are just three prominent examples of how the persecution of white Americans is now escalating. It is a full-blown war at this point. The only people not fighting it for the most part are white Americans. And I'm not looking for a hot war. I don't want to fight a battle. I don't want to be doing this show. I want to be left alone. I want people like Abdulwali here to leave me alone. I want him to stay in Somalia. I want to be able to walk down the street at night after going to a concert and not get violently assaulted. Just everybody leave me alone. Return to Land is them acting out this idea of just leave me the hell alone. I don't want to be mugged. I don't want to be robbed. I don't want to be stolen from. I just want to be left alone from government and other animal communities out there that would do me harm intentionally. I'm over it. I am over it. But folks, the Overton window is shifting. The fact that I am doing this podcast, the fact that everyone in the comments agrees with me, things are changing. Donald Trump, if there is any criticism from this community, my Rumble community about Donald Trump, it's that he's not doing enough. Am I disappointed in Donald Trump's administration? I mean, you can do Epstein, like, yeah, give me the list. Give who's really running the government. This is important to know here. But when it comes to everything else, deportations, immigration stance, welfare stuff, he's not doing enough. I think 2028 is going to get really interesting here. The younger generation, the younger you go, the more radicalized people are. Our 2028 presidential candidate, I think J.D. Vance might tap into the zeitgeist a little bit. Certainly by 2032, if we still have a country, I think Donald Trump is going to look tame. Americans on the right, the young Americans on the right, and heck, even people like me and my audience here, we skew a little bit older. We're demanding more, and I think I'm just going to use the word authoritarianism because there's no other solution. The idea of impartiality has never existed. This idea of neutrality, it's all a giant lie here. There are two parties, there are two visions in America here, and only one is going to rule. Either the communist, woke, anti-white, right or leftist demons are going to be in charge of the country, or our philosophy is going to be in the country. Yeah, stop being tolerant. Tolerance is also a lie fed to white people, and white Dems have bought into it. Tolerance, neutrality, impartiality, it doesn't exist. There are two visions for America. I want my vision to rule, and that means not compromising with these people, not unifying with them, not being impartial to be like, well, we'll play by my principles game and we'll let the communists just relentlessly march towards our destruction. We need a right-wing authoritarian to end this nonsense. He said, like, no, you can't just do 4 years of like Trump and then go back to Democrats in charge, or having Abdulwali's cousin being the mayor of Minneapolis, or Mamdani being the mayor of New York City. There are two visions, two ruling ideologies in this country. And right now, the one on our side is just like, well, we'll try to limit it. We'll try to stop it. Like, no, it needs to be squashed. It needs to be squashed. Like, we will get authoritarianism under Democrats. Why can't we get authoritarianism under Republicans, but the right kind of authoritarianism? You can still have all your freedoms. And actually, a right-wing authoritarian would just be like, you're allowed to do what you want to do as a white person. And no, you can't go assault a white person and get away with it anymore. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking for. You label that however you want. But something needs to get done here. And I think Americans on the right are waking up to that fact that it's just like, no, we can't do this little pendulum back and forth. Sometimes it's a Republican, sometimes it's a Democrat, because Democrats on this side, they will cheat, lie, steal, and murder to get their way. They are only consumed by power, and the only solution of that is power on our side that is wielded for the good of the people. All right, how about that, folks? We went an hour and 11 today. My shed in here is about 85 degrees. I just checked the thermometer here. I'm hot. I'm hot about the topics. I am literally hot in my office shed right now. I'm going to go find a glass of water, go find some air conditioning here. But I do want to say thanks to everybody for tuning in today. Thanks for dealing with our camera mishaps. This was a fun show. We had a lot of engagement in the chat today, and I appreciate that. Again, just want to give a shout out to Fally for joining us, Wrong Think today for joining us here. Scrolling down, we had Jason in the chat today. Mickey was in the chat today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I will be back on Thursday, and then Jason and I are in the hot seat on Friday on our Freedom from the Rest podcast that we do together. But have a great rest of your day. If you're in Minnesota, stay cool, and we will catch you on Thursday. Oh, we got Wrong Think. One more comment here. JD Vance did comment on the Cincinnati thuggery. It was good. His home state, by the way. Yeah, Wrong Think. I actually had that clip here. JD Vance, this is what I like about JD Vance. I'll finish with this comment here. Thanks for adding this here. Then we'll get out. JD Vance called them thugs and animals and wanted their asses locked up in prison. That's the energy we need from the new right now. We need, Jason says, cool off. We need someone to speak that up. We're all feeling it. We're all saying it. We need our political leaders to do that as well. JD Vance wants those thug animals thrown in jail for what they did. That's a good start. I want them thrown off an airplane, but we'll get there. We need a GoFundMe for Todd to get an AC. Probably. Actually, speaking of GoFundMe here, there's always something to comment on. My wife and I are going to Puerto Rico in November. I want to go find AOC's abuela's house. I want to see if it's still leaking from rain. So when I'm down in Puerto Rico, if she's in the San Juan area, I'm going to go look for AOC's abuela. I think that'll be a good time. All right. With that being said, folks, I'm out of here. Thanks for tuning into the show. We'll see you on Thursday. Have a great rest of your day.